What's going on, everybody? Trevor Sikkema here with Joe Marino and Brentley Weissman. I had to get these two on the line because we got to talk about a topic that has just come up over the past week, and it has to do with Sam Darnold. We're still talking about Sam Darnold, even though he has already been traded to the Carolina Panthers. But we're talking about what could have been, because the report that just came out said the San Francisco 49ers, before they moved up to number 3, offered number 12 overall for Sam Darnold with the New York Jets. And this trade didn't happen. Brentley, I'm going to start with you. Tell me which part of this trade blows your mind more. Is it the fact that the Niners offered 12 for Sam Darnold, or is it the fact that the Jets didn't take this deal?
I think to me, it's the fact that the Jets didn't take this deal. Because when you think about what they did take, I think they got a 2022 second-round pick, a 2022 fourth-round pick, and a 2021 sixth-round pick. That's a lot less than the number 12 overall pick. And,
Right.
what the reports are saying is Joe Douglas was hesitant to make this trade because he wasn't confident in Zach Wilson's shoulder. That tells me two things. One, that there must have been some legit concerns with the shoulder that maybe not many people were talking about. Obviously, it's cleared now. But two, they must think that Zach Wilson is so much better than Justin Fields, because Joe Douglas could have had the number 12 pick and Fields if he weren't confident about Wilson's shoulder. And so to turn that opportunity down, they must think it is light years between Wilson and Fields, because otherwise, I'm not sure how you can justify this.
Joe, just to expand upon that a little bit, we've heard some whispers that the NFL really believes that it's Trevor Lawrence and Zach Wilson at the top, and then it's kind of pick whoever you want after that. It depends on who you ask, but it's just not in that same bucket of those two guys. We've heard, the reports come out, some NFL teams would say that Sam Darnold would be QB3 in this draft behind those two guys. What's your opinion? As somebody who has watched all of these quarterbacks in detail, what's it like to kind of hear that even a player like Justin Fields, Trey Lance, Mac Jones, like they're all so far behind what Sam Darnold has been so far in the NFL?
It's really interesting because I think I disagree initially with the idea that the tier from Trevor Lawrence to Zach Wilson to everyone else is that steep, because I have Zach Wilson and Justin Fields very closely graded, with Fields ahead of Wilson. So I don't understand why there's such a big discrepancy. And so I kind of want to focus there to start, because Justin Fields has all of the physical talent that Zach Wilson does. More. He's got more physical talent. He's a better athlete. He has a better arm. He has better size. And he has a better resume against better competition for a longer period of time. We are very quick to dismiss 2018 and 2019 from Zach Wilson. I know that 2020 was special. My jaw was on the floor watching Zach Wilson play football in 2020. But I didn't forget about his struggles against San Diego State and Hawaii and San Jose State from 2019 to 2018. We want to focus on Justin Fields having a down game against Northwestern without his top 2 wide receivers.
Right.
Come on.
Right.
I can't buy into this at all. So that's like, as soon as you bring that up, I just don't understand the tiering that we perceive or have been told the NFL values these quarterbacks, because to me, I rather have Fields than Wilson. Now, when you talk about slotting in Sam Darnold to this equation, the challenge is that Sam Darnold was in a situation with the Jets that I don't think anybody could have succeeded in, right? The worst coaching in the NFL, the worst roster in the NFL around him. And he came out of USC kind of raw, right? He didn't have a ton of experience under his belt, had turnover problems at USC, and nothing goes away after 3 seasons in the NFL. Are we surprised? So it's hard for me to really gauge, okay, where's Sam Darnold at? The betting for Darnold's going to be this fresh start in Carolina, Joe Brady, smaller market team, good receivers and Robbie Anderson and DJ Moore. Obviously, Christian McCaffrey's in the mix. I'm excited for Sam Darnold, but I almost go back to where I had Sam Darnold as a prospect at this point. And I had him as a second-round grade. Well, I have a first-round grade on Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, and Zach Wilson, and then that's it for this draft class. So he's in that tier with me, with Sam Darnold, would be with Trey Lance, and then the Mac Jones of the world. So I think he's definitely behind those first 3, but you can you could probably convince me that he's close to a Trey Lance or a Mac Jones.
Brentley, I want to ask you about this part of the report, because this, of course, we don't know if this is 100% fact. These are just the reports that have kind of come out. The shoulder part that you brought up, where it's like, okay, the Jets said no because they wanted to see if Zach Wilson's shoulder was okay. Well, if Zach Wilson, I guess, had a bum shoulder, then that would have propelled Sam Darnold to QB2 for them in this class. Like, Trevor Lawrence would have been the only guy that they would have taken over him. I guess that's what that report would have said. I want to ask you about that part of it, and also just the part of pro days in general. Like, do we really think that pro days mean this much to these teams? Because we also heard, okay, the 49ers traded up to number 3, and some people said, hey, they moved up to 3 and they're not exactly sure who they want yet. I don't know if I buy that, but that again came from the premise of we don't want to do something, or we don't have our mind made up yet in January and February. We're waiting for these pro days. So do you believe that pro days matter a lot more than we thought?
No, I think the 49ers knew exactly who they're drafting the minute they made that trade. Otherwise, you don't make that trade. And so, I think Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch are doing their due diligence, attending all these pro days. And, if something sways them drastically, that's possible. But again, I don't believe that they did not know exactly who they're targeting at 3, because they had to have known the Jets are looking at Wilson. There's too many connection points between the Jets coaching staff and the 49ers coaching staff. So because the Niners knew between Fields, between Lance, between Mac Jones, this is who we're going to draft at 3. Let's still do our homework to see if anything potentially could change our minds. But ultimately, we feel comfortable with this guy to be our next quarterback.
Joe, you mentioned the Carolina landing spot for Sam Darnold, and I want to touch on that a little bit, but specifically the trade itself, because after the Niners moved from 12 to 3, when Darnold was traded to Carolina, I believe it was Ian Rappaport who said that the Panthers were the only suitor for Sam Darnold at that point. So what do you then think about what they had to give up? A 2nd-round pick, a 4th-round pick, and a 6th-round pick, basically just bidding against themselves. Are you still comfortable with Sam Darnold? Like you said, getting a fresh start, better spot, better weapons around him. Is that still okay? Or would you think that the Panthers probably could have got him for less?
It's tough to say, but I will say this. I don't think a 2, a 4, and a 6 is that much to give up for Sam Darnold. I don't think that they overpaid, even if there's nobody else at the negotiating table. I think you still have ethics that are involved where you have to give market value for a player, right? I mean, at the end of the day, it's Sam Darnold still in his early 20s and came into the NFL not long ago as a number 3 overall pick. And I always like to separate reasons from excuses, but there are a lot of reasons why Sam Darnold didn't succeed with the New York Jets. And so I think that there's still a responsibility to have fair market value on a trade for a player, even if there's nobody else at the table. And again, I just don't know that a future 2 and a 4 and a 6 this year is that much to take a swing on Sam Darnold, especially when you think about the salary implications, where it winds up being a pretty modest deal, a 2-year deal. They picked up the 5th-year option, like a 2-year, $25 million deal for a quarterback. I mean, they're paying a lot more than that for Teddy Bridgewater. So I'm not sure that I really take much exception with what Carolina gave up to get Sam Darnold.
What could have been. The conversations that we love to have surrounding the NFL draft. For Joe Marino, Brentley Weissman, I'm Trevor Sikkema. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you next time.